1 minute. No, it's 9 now. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي نويت تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير ونفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على تمسك بكتاب الله وبسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والدعاء للهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. Okay, so we're continuing on the Juz Amma, and we're on Surah al-Falaq al-Yawm today. Just a few things that I want to mention. There's a story of the Prophet of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radhiallahu anhu, who is the second Khalifa of Islam. And one day he was going from Medina to Mecca, yeah. And as he's approaching Mecca, he meets the leader of Mecca at the time, and obviously meets him and stuff. And he says, Sayyidina Umar says to the leader of Mecca, "How's Mecca? Have you left it? What's going on there? Is everything okay?" He says, "To whom have you left it? Who's in charge?" And he says, "I left it in charge of this man who used to be a slave." And Sayyidina Umar says, "You left, Mecca, the great Mecca, with the Quraysh, like how proud the Quraysh were, and in charge you've left an ex-slave. What are you doing?" And the man goes that this person is a qari of the Quran, recites Quran, and he recites the most Quran with meaning in the entire Makkah, sorry. And so the point is that the whole purpose of kind of gatherings like this is to make us people of the Quran. We know about the narration where the Prophet ﷺ said that the people of the Quran are the people of Allah, the select people of Allah. So this is very important for us. I was reflecting a lot on kind of like the times that we're in, and it's sadly just distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Majority of people are not interested in God. But we have to have that return, and this is part of that, where however small the gathering is and however little number of people that are attending, we have to have something, we have to have some sort of kind of attachment back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And fundamentally that relates primarily to the Quran and our attachment to the Quran. We've really kind of disrespected the Quran in the sense that we've just we just made it as a book of recital. Like it's like a hymn sheet. We just recite over it. We recite it when on a special occasion or when we're told to. There's no really maqsad behind it. But my vision, inshallah, we all have visions, yeah. So my vision is to, inshallah, try and spread like the message of the entire Quran. I want to try and teach the Quran at least once, the entire thing from cover to cover. So we're starting that, inshallah, slowly but surely. But it's important to have lofty intention, and the most important thing is this. You see, many people, they might know a few narrations here or there, or they might watch a video here and there by this speaker, or they might think, yeah, get excited, or yeah, listen to this, or I watch this, or they get that's the level of a lot of people's Islam, just a little superficial thing, watch a talk here, send a WhatsApp picture there, WhatsApp status there, and that's the extent of people's religion. Actually living the deen, very few people do. Like actually living it. Yeah, and you know we mentioned this like you know in our class on Tuesday that you see this like when Allah Subhanahu wa Taala asks us, Ya ayyuhan nasu abudu rabbakum, oh people worship your Lord. That abdiya that has two facets, right? It has an element of worship and has an element of slavehood. So our worship is you know something that we have to kind of like work on in terms of our actions and our ibadat. But more importantly is our slavehood, i.e., what we're doing when we're not in worship. So we're with family or we're at work or you know we're trading or you know whatever we're doing. That's the time where people forget, right? Very easy to kind of well even then like you know in our worship we're kind of like distant, but at least you're halfway there because you're praying, aren't you? You're there. But the problem then comes when a person you know beyond that there's distance. So you know these things are very important, and everything that we mention in these things, primarily the most important thing for us is to you know extract the points of reflection and then the points of which we're going to think, okay, I need to change my life now. Okay, and particularly these surahs, they do that because they're small but powerful. Yeah, they're small but powerful. طيب, Surah al-Falaq. Now, as I mentioned last week, Surah al-Falaq and Surah al-Nas were revealed together. Okay, revealed together. And the story that I mentioned, that the Prophet ﷺ was in Medina, and one of the great fitnas that he had in the time whilst he was in Medina was the Jews. Okay, and the Jews, the fundamental issue that the Jews had was this: they did not, okay, they knew that there was a final prophet that was going to come, but they thought that he was going to come from the Jewish tribes. The reality was the Prophet ﷺ came from the Arab tribes. Okay, so they didn't accept him on that basis. It was a sense of racism. They're racist, right? He's not from our people, so we're not interested. So what happens is, out of their hatred, you know, what happens is one time this man, the Prophet ﷺ used to have a child who would comb his hair. So this man, and this child was a Jewish child. So a man by the name of Labid ibn A'sam, he pays this child to get some hairs of the Prophet ﷺ. So he brings some of the hairs of the Prophet ﷺ, and he gets his daughters to engage in witchcraft. Okay, so they make like a figurine, they tie knots within to the hairs, and they blow spells on it, like sorcery. Okay, and then they coil it around this figurine and they hide the figurine. And so then the Prophet ﷺ, he has kind of, it has an adverse effect on the Prophet ﷺ, physically. Okay, so he starts to get tired easily. Some narration mentioned that he's doing something and he forgets what he's doing. That actually has an adverse effect on him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he gets really ill to the extent where he starts to go in and out of consciousness, like extremely ill. Then what happens is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires the Prophet ﷺ in the form of a dream that two angels come and they discuss what's happened. So they say, well, you know, what is this? And the angels say, well, this is Labid ibn A'sam, he has done this. He has caused his daughters to make a figurine and take one of his hairs and to blow spells on his hairs. And this is the case, and they found where this figurine was. And then what happens is the Prophet wakes up from this dream, tells his companions to find this figurine. They find it, they uncoil the hair out of it, and and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals Surah al-Falaq and Surah al-Nas. And Surah al-Falaq and Surah al-Nas, there are 11 ayat in total. There were 11 knots upon his hair, and he recited an ayah and took out a knot, and recited an ayah, took out a knot, recited an ayah and took out a knot, and one by one, his illness was lifted. Okay, so that's the backdrop. So one of the things about these is that the Prophet ﷺ called these two surahs al-Mu'awwidhatayn, which means the two protecting surahs. Al-Mu'awwidhatayn, the two protecting surahs. Okay, and what was the common practice of the Prophet ﷺ is that he would recite these surahs every single night. Okay, and I'll explain the actual sunnah of how he would do it towards the end of the class. Right. So let's look at this from an ayah level. The first one, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. Say that I seek refuge in the Lord of the daybreak. Now, First thing is this concept of seeking refuge. Okay, Ada ya'udu. This comes from the root word which means to cling onto something for protection and to not let go. It's like a child, when a child gets scared, okay, like in the dark or somewhere or something scares it, the child will cling onto the mother or cling onto the parent or the guardian, right, and will not let go no matter what happens, right? And that is like that's what this means. So we're seeking protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a type of protection which only He can give. So we're like extreme type of clinging on, right? Ultimately, whenever we're seeking protection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's like a person when they're seeking protection from God, they have to kind of humble themselves, and this is part of the kind of meaning behind the surah. Sometimes people, like people have this thing where, I'm self-sufficient. I know I don't need anybody. I have strength. I have a capability. I have power. I don't need anyone. People have this arrogance factor, and what this surah is showing that no, you don't. Okay, because the evils that are mentioned in the surah are actually evils which we can't even control. Okay, min sharri ma khalaq, of that which the evil of that which you've created. So we don't go out looking for evil. All right. Sometimes the evil of other people can affect us, so we can't control that, and so automatically that puts a person in a state of helplessness, like, oh Allah, I'm at your mercy, right? And so therefore a person should kind of humble themselves. You humble yourself in front of God and seek His protection. Okay, and that is, the most fundamental thing of religion is recognizing who Allah is, and then recognizing who you are. Meaning, like, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and where are you in relation to that? Okay. This falaq, qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq. Now, falaq we translate as daybreak, right? But actually, falaqa means to rip open something so something comes out. To rip open something so that something comes out. So the analogy of daybreak is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rips open the darkness and light comes from it. In the morning, okay, the darkness fades away and the light comes forth, right? And that has a connection with creation. You see, all creation comes from something that's ripped open. And not in the kind of like actual ripping, but in the concept of something is in a state, and then something happens to that state, and then something comes out of it. Classic example is a child. The child comes out of the womb of the mother. That's not physically ripped open, but it comes out of the womb of the mother. Likewise, water comes out of the clouds. Okay, plants come out of the earth. So that's the concept that we brought here. Okay. Now, what that means is what is Allah saying? He's a Rabbul Falaq. So that Rabb, remember we spoke last time about what are the different manifestations of Rabb. So Rabb has a meaning of mastership. It has the meaning of nurturing. It has the meaning of giving. It has the meaning of bestowing of gifts. Okay, so it has all these different facets. But one thing that's very important is mastership. Mastership. That's one of the fundamental things about Rabb. So Allah is saying that He is master of all those kind of births. So you see, like how a plant has a birth, the rain has a birth, a child has a birth. It's like going from one state that's then ripped open and then something comes through. So Allah is saying He's the master of all of that. So He's like the originator of all those things. Okay. And what's interesting is this. You see, this surah, what the ulama says, in Surah An-Nas, what was the fundamental evil that was being brought forward? The issue of the whispering of the shaitan, right? And in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings different type of evils that have external and internal effects upon a human being, right? And so what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here, look, difficulties are going to come upon you, but I am Rabbul Falaq. So you might think that you are closed up and constricted in your difficulty, but I will rip you out of that and bring ease for you. And one of the great signs of that is inna ma'al usri yusra. Indeed, with difficulty, you think that you're in difficulty and it's closed up and it's so difficult and I can't do anything, and then all of a sudden, yusra, ease comes out of nowhere. Okay, and then how powerful is that Allah repeats that again? Inna ma'al usri yusra. And so the point here is that him being the Rabb of the Falaq, him being the master of those births, those affairs that come from a state of nothing, and Allah rips that open and brings out a new state. Okay, that's what being mentioned here. That these evils that come upon us in life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who takes you from states of difficulty into states of ease. Okay. Now, one of the other things is this. The actual, what's been mentioned here is this issue of daybreak, okay, which is basically going from a state of darkness into light, right? That's what daybreak is, okay. Now, what's interesting is that classically, darkness has always been attributed to evil, yeah. So Allah says in the Quran, "Inna shirka la dhulmun azim." Indeed, shirk, associating partners with God, la dhulmun azim, is an extreme darkness, and people will translate it as an extreme evil. Dhulm in Arabic is known as darkness. So darkness is attributed to evil, yeah, and light is attributed to guidance, goodness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Allahu nuru samawati wal ard." Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. So Allah uses light as an attribute of Himself. Okay, so what we'll notice here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, look, the difficulties that you find, the darkness that you find in your life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can rip that open and bring light in your life. And always light is attributed to goodness, okay, and darkness is attributed to evil and difficulty. The Prophet ﷺ also told us that Falaq is actually a part of hellfire, an extreme part of hellfire. A hellfire such that even hellfire itself seeks refuge in Allah from it. Okay, that's how extreme this place is. And this place is reserved for the people who engage in the evil acts that are mentioned in the surah, namely sorcerers and jealous people who are jealous, people who have hasad. Okay, which we're going to go into. A point that we mentioned last time, and I think it's prudent that we repeat it, is the power of qul. Now, qul means say. Now, who is saying that? Allah is saying that. And who is He saying that to? The Prophet ﷺ. Okay? Now, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to do something, here this is a command. Qul means it says, it's a command. So if a person says what Allah is telling them to say, automatically they're in a state of obedience. And that's very important here. If we want to be of those who earn the protection of God, we have to be of those who are subservient to Him. Meaning, you want help from Allah, you have to obey Him. Don't expect great things from God if you are not, and so on, as in, you know what I mean? As in, like, sometimes people are in a state of like heedlessness for so long, then they expect Allah just to come on, sort it out. And you think, hey, okay, subhanAllah. So sometimes we have to remember that this is not a game. We can't play with God. Come on now, Allah, where are you? Right? Rather, we have to be in a constant state of obedience throughout our life. That's the taklif, that's the responsibility that we take, right? So, we will seek the protection of Allah and obtain the protection of Allah through His obedience. Okay, through His obedience. Right, and I think what's also is a point that I mentioned previously, that this concept of qul, it removes the ego, right? It removes the ego and removes this sense of I don't need any help. No, you humble yourself, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you to do something, and you humble yourself as a slave of God. You humble yourself as a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So that's قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. Another thing that's interesting, أَعُوذُ means I. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making this a personal connection. And sometimes I think that's really important. Whenever we recite the Quran, this is why it's important to understand the meaning, because we should make it a personal thing. I have a connection with Allah. And I have Allah is listening to me. And if I say, Qul a'udhu, me, I seek refuge. Allah is listening specifically to me. Of all the people that He could listen to, all the people who He is listening to, Allah is listening to me. So this is a personal thing, and our connection to the Quran should be personal. It should be a personal attachment. Okay. Ayah number 2, min sharri ma khalaq, from the evil of that which He has created. We mentioned last week that shar comes from sharara, which means that spark that jumps out of a fire and tries to attacks you. Okay, so shar is basically, it's translated as evil. It's the opposite of any type of good. That's what shar is. Okay, and we seek refuge in the creator of all things, because He's the one who has power of all things, right? And that's sometimes important, because sometimes when we're going through difficulty, or we will go through test, or we're affected by somebody, we run to like other people in our kind of vision, expecting assistance and expecting help from them. But in reality, we should be seeking protection from the one who created them. He's the creator, al-Falaq, right? And this then enters into a different discussion. Does Allah create evil? Okay, is Allah evil? Right? Like some non-Muslims will say, well, if Allah was kind, then why are these wars going on? Why are people dying? Good question, right? So what's the answer? Okay. So but why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cause them to do it?
Because it was a choice and they chose the wrong choice.
Okay, yeah. That's in essence, that's it. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't create evil as an entity, but He creates things which lack goodness. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doesn't create evil, like because that that's what He wants to do. No, Allah creates khair and then some things with less khair. Okay? But we perceive that as something bad. And in that's quite interesting, because then you think that everyone has a hope. Everyone has hope. Okay? Everyone has hope to be good. Don't have this perception that, oh, he's an evil guy. He will never get back to the truth. No, you don't know that. You don't know that. You hear about stories of that, in Germany there was a guy, and he was like far right, leader of the far right parties against Islam. Come Muslim? How is that? Right? People would perceive him to be evil. But in reality, there was always goodness in there, right? So that's important. The other thing to notice is this: everything has a flaw. Nothing is perfect, right? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. He is beyond any type of blemish, any type of limit, any type of control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that reminds us that every single thing has a kind of thing. And life's never all good, rosy and dandy, is it? There's always going to be things which are not up to par. Always going to be things that are not perfect. Okay?
Was the Prophet perfect?
Yeah. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No doubt. In terms, you see, there's a perfection of Allah and a perfection of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In terms of the perfection of God, in that nothing is like Him. But we have similitudes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what was the perfection of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He was perfect slave of God. That's his perfection. Okay.
But people are born, and then Allah has certain things. Is this person wretched, or is this person good? Is that when they die, when they're born? I can't remember. There's something.
Yeah. So basically, when a child is in the womb, an angel will come and scribe certain affairs upon their forehead, of which so that he'll scribe how long that person will live.
Yeah.
He'll scribe what rizq will they will have in their life. There's a few other things. There's a hadith actually mentioned that speaks about it. That an angel comes and scribes that upon the person. Now, we don't know that. We don't know that. That's just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala scribes it upon a person's forehead. We don't know that. Now, what happens is sometimes people have this thing that, well, okay, so if I'm going to hell anyway, well, what's the point? If you don't know that though, that's the thing. You have to work hard, and in the end of the day, you're only going to go into your abode because of your actions. You're like, you only have yourself to blame. You can't blame God. You had the chance, right, to believe it. You had the chance to act in a certain way. That was, if you didn't do it, that's your fault. There's no blame upon Yawm al-Qiyamah. You'll have your chance to stand in front of Allah and say, well, you'll have the chance to advocate. Okay, but yeah, there is a hadith that mentions that. Yeah. Okay. من شر غاسق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب. And from the evil of the darkening night as it comes with its darkness. Ghasaqa in Arabic language is the first part of the night, meaning that when the sky is totally black. Totally black. It also means that when something disappears such that it goes all dark. So imagine you're in like a hole and you have a match. You blow the match out and it always goes dark. That's ghasaq. That's ghasaq. Okay. Now, as I mentioned previously, that night is always attached to evil. Okay. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned the hadith that if you knew what I knew, you wouldn't go out at night. If you knew what I knew, you wouldn't go out at night. So spending time at night is you should remain indoors at night time, right? It's just, we just see it that people turn into devils at night time. Yeah, people actually turn into devils. People, their standards decrease. The kind of things that they say get worse. Their actions get worse. Their behavior gets worse, and it's a night time, right? And the potential of evil increases at night as well. Okay, so that's why it's actually, we should be very careful about the night time, right? That we should only be engaged in good. Imam Ghazali, rahmatullah alayhi, he was strict. Imam Ghazali says after Isha, you should be in bed, you should be asleep, and you should be preparing to get up for the morning for the Tahajjud, right? We are like, well, that's when the party starts, yeah, after Isha, yeah. So that's something that's really interesting. And so I was reading this as well, that like how the moon has it has an effect on the tides, on the waves, yeah. And then you have this concept of, sometimes, it's like mythical. Like, I think it's in Harry Potter where one of the guys sees the moon and he becomes a werewolf, yeah? Lupin, Professor Lupin, right? Okay, so it's all fantasy and stuff, but apparently there's some scientific thing that the moon actually has an impact on people's behavior. Do you see how that thing is not totally, it's not totally a fantasy.
It's like come from somewhere.
It's from somewhere. So that night time, people's behavior change. It's a thing that actually affects it, and that's quite scary, because if you think about that, that's quite scary. That is, right? At night time, you see like, for example, I was in a masjid not long ago. I was just speaking to somebody. Someone got stabbed, and some of the people that we know, and it's like, it always happens at night time, doesn't it? You don't see it in broad daylight. If you see broad daylight, that's quite ajeeb for something like that to happen in the day. But generally, evils, where do they kind of originate? They originate at the night time. That's scary. We have to protect ourselves from that, right? And people who recite the surah, they shouldn't be out at night. So this is the first practical step, right? If you recite the surah, don't go out at night. You should remain indoors at night time. Okay. Waqab here, إذا waqab, it means darkness as well, but it's a type of darkness such that something goes totally invisible. Like something might be dark, but there might be some light somewhere that you can see. But then when it goes totally pitch black, so you literally can't see at all. What is this mentioning? You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning that we seek refuge in that Lord, okay, from the evil that comes in the darkness, number one, وَإِذَا وَقَبَ, and the evil that it gets to a stage where you can't see anything. Sometimes there are evils that we just don't see. There are devils or jinns or even people who are engaging in evil against you, and you just don't see it. You don't see it. And that kind of again reiterates this point of helplessness. We're helpless in front of God. We can't even see the affair. We are limited to our senses, isn't it? Whatever we see in front of us, that's it. We just go with the flow as far as that's concerned. And so Allah is mentioning here that you should seek protection from that darkness, because that darkness is real, and those evil spirits are real. present, where we seek protection in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from them. Okay? So, yeah, وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ, and from the evil of the blowers or the sorcerers in knots. Nafathat actually means nafathat, the at, that's a feminine plural, right? And that basically it means the women who blow on knots. The women, okay, or witchcraft basically, all right, who blow upon knots. And in particular, it relates to this surah because this is what happened. The daughters of Labid ibn A'sam, what did he do? He blew upon they blew upon the knots of his hair, and they caused sorcery upon him, right? This type of evil, it's real. It is a real thing, right? It's tangible. I've seen people who have been engaged, who have been subject to this, right? It's a real, and it actually has physical impacts upon people, right? It has physical impacts on people. Now, what's interesting to note is this, before this whole episode of Labid ibn Asim, no one knew about this concept of blowing upon knots at that time, right? So, Labid ibn A'sam gets his daughters to do this kind of like secret witchcraft, right? And then Allah reveals an ayah, وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ, and from the evil of those who blow upon knots. So it shows the power of the revelation. That you think that you're doing something that nobody knows about. Allah is all-knowing. He's al-Alim. So He sends down an ayah explaining that, hang on a minute, I know about this. And I'm going to tell my slaves to seek refuge in this evil that you have conjured up. Okay? And that shows the power of revelation and shows the truthfulness of the Prophet ﷺ. That the Prophet ﷺ, this was the revelation that he was getting, totally true from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Now the final one is the most important one. Yeah, go on.
Wait, so this witchcraft, was it done? It wasn't done before, or just people didn't know about
this
it?
This concept of blowing upon knots was not something that was known previously.
It wasn't even done previously.
It might have been done, but no one knew about it.
Oh.
So then Allah reveals this ayah and explains that this is what happens. People do. Yeah. This final ayah is the most important one, and I kind of like skimmed over the other two because this is the crux of them all. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, and from the evil of the envier when he engages in envy. Now, this is the root of the issues that have been mentioned previously, okay? And also, I would say the issue, this is the root of all evils as far as, as far as it relates to kind of the issues that we see on a daily basis with our friends and our family, yeah? This is the fundamental thing. Envy, hatred, jealousy. The shaitana means to be in an extreme state of jealousy. The shaitan, if you look at his greatest crime, what was his greatest crime? He was jealous. Why is everybody bowing down to this? Why are they not bowing down to me? Right? And so that was his greatest crime. So when you find people in a state of extreme jealousy, you know straight away that that's a satanic thought. And if you have that in your heart, you should all, immediately seek protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? There's two types of jealousy. Okay? There's this word which is hasad, which is blameworthy. Right? He has a better house. Why? Why does he have a better house than me? Why? Why did Allah give it to him? Right? Questioning the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And then there's a praiseworthy type of jealousy, which is known as ghibta. Ghibta. Now, ghibta is when, like you say, for example, oh, he has a beautiful house. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me one as well. May Allah bless him in the house that he's been given. May Allah give me a good one as well. Right? So there's two types. But the blameworthy one is the most dangerous one. Right? Obviously, it's the most dangerous. Yeah? And what's interesting here as well is this. You see, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Min sharri hasidin idha. What does idha mean? When? Not if. And a person who has jealousy within them they're automatically going to be envious and spread that envy. It's not a case of, وَمِن شَرِّ حَسْدٍ in hasad, if he's jealous. No. Either when, because it's going to happen. He is going to be jealous. If he harbors that type of hatred for other people, there's no doubt he will have that. That's how evil an attribute this thing is, of being jealous about other people, right? Of being obsessed with other people and what they have. Now, this kind of concept of hasad has different manifestations. Of the most dangerous manifestations is this concept of ayn, evil eye, nazar on something. And there's an ayah of the Quran that alludes to this in Surah Qalam, where Allah says, وَإِن يَكَادُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِمْ لَمَّا سَمِعُوا الذِّكْرَ وَيَقُولُونَ إِنَّهُ لَمَجْنُونَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verily those who believe would make you slip with their eyes through hatredness. Make you slip with their eyes through hatredness. What does that mean? That you look upon somebody and through your eye, you harbor that hatred. And you make dua against them. Like, I hope why the hell has he got that? Hope it doesn't last long. Why are they all happy for? That is something that's very prevalent amongst that community. We see it all the time. Someone gets a new house, someone buys a new car, someone gets new things, might wear new clothes, you know what I mean? Has a new watch, has a new phone, and it just shows what level people are at. So it's an obsession with the dunya things, mal, you know what I mean? Attaining kind of like worldly things, and then people being jealous about that. You find people, they'll go to someone's house to see something. Okay, I'm gonna get a bigger one. How did you got it? I'll get a bigger one. That is evil. That is evil. That is. And we should, if we find that in our hearts, may Allah not find that in our hearts, but if we do, we should seek protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from this. Right? And what's interesting here is this. You see, 2 ayahs earlier, what does Allah say? From the evil of the darkness, when darkness enters into it. The jealous person, you don't see them, do you? They don't be jealous in front of your face. In front of your face, like, oh yeah, really nice, yeah. Behind your back, the jealousy manifests in the darkness. That's why this ayah is very important, because it links back to the previous ones. Why would a person blow knots upon, why would a person engage in witchcraft against you? Have jealousy, hatred, jealousy, right? And the jealous one himself, the hasid here, is the one who engages it at the time of darkness. Yeah, but no one's there watching it, right? And so this is important. We have kind of what's sad as well is this, that we find like Muslims being jealous with Muslims and harboring hatred amongst them, and Muslims being jealous with non-Muslims. So you find like people will fight over bits of land abroad, yeah, or fight over land here, or fight over petty issues, inheritance, right? Or, silly things. Just jealous of why he has more. Why has he got more? What about me? This is, and it's a sickness. It's a sickness. And for me, that idha there is so powerful, because it's just like you have even a khatra, even thought of that. That's gonna manifest. That's scary. You can't control it. You can't say, you feel a bit and then you don't think about it. Because in the shaitan, he just pounces. It's easy work. It's easy pickings for the shaitan. Yeah, you know what? Why has he got that? Yeah, good point, actually. And then it just plays and plays and then it goes min sharri al-waswas al-khannas. You see that? And so the point here is these are kind of like external factors that a person gets affected by. You can't control, right? You can't control. So we have to kind of like be very careful about that. But this issue of jealousy has to be reiterated again, that we must become people who protect ourselves from that. And if other people do it around us, well, we can't protect ourselves. But what we do is we protect ourselves by reciting these surahs. That's what the Prophet ﷺ did. You see, this story of Labid ibn Asam, it was just a clear act of jealousy. That's what they did. They were jealous. Why was he part of that tribe? He should have been part of ours. So they were jealous. And so the Prophet ﷺ, what does he then do? He recites these ayahs are revealed to him, and then he makes this a regular recital for himself. every single night. The Prophet ﷺ would get Surah al-Ikhlas, which we'll go into next time, Surah al-Falaq, and Surah al-Nas. And he would recite them 3 times and blow into his hands 3 times and rub upon his body, wherever he was able to reach. Like, start with his face and his chest and his back and everything as a protection. Okay?
Should you do that to your kids as well? Like,
yes, definitely. You should, I think it's very, very important that parents do that for their children. Yeah, recite Quran upon them. Yeah. It's hard. It's a deep, isn't it? That we will listen to kind of like other things like songs and things like that. We don't realize that has a negative impact. We think, oh yeah, it's just a sing song, and after 4 minutes it's finished, and yeah, that's it. Yeah. We don't see the negative impact that has psychologically, what it has. Just look at documentaries that speak about the dangers of music and the effect that will have on the brain. And what the effect does, it hits you at your times of devotion. You're trying to concentrate in prayer, you can't do it. You start thinking about the song. You're in sajda, you start thinking about the song. You're trying to pray to God, you think about the song. You see how it's like a disease. It affects the brain. It's like brain pollution. That's what it is. So we have to kind of beautify our ears with this, because there's only good going to come from this, from ayat of the Quran. How many times do we spend just listening to the Quran? This is something very, very, very important. But in particular, as it relates to the issue of jealousy, we must protect ourselves. There's always going to be jealous people. That's it. But what do? You keep your connection strong with Allah, and you protect yourself in these things. Okay, that's important. There's some points of eloquence that I want to mention here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he goes from being a concept of genericness to specificness. So he first said, min sharri ma khalaq, from the evil of that which is created. So that's quite generic, right? From the evil of that which is created. Well, that's everything. His creation encompasses everything. So from the evil of that, then he goes into specifics. So the evil of the darkness, the evil of the not blowers, and the evil of the envious ones. Why does Allah do that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning here that these specific things are the extreme ones. So yeah, the general evil that is amongst creation, but in particular, the evil of the darkness. In particular, the evil of the sources. And in particular, the evil of the jealous ones. Okay, those who harbor this type of hasad. Okay. Also, what's interesting is, from a grammatical perspective, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will say, min sharri ghasiqin idha waqab. Now the ghasiqin has no al, right? There's no al, right? It's just no al, it's the name, which is nakira, right? It has no al. It's generic. It's a generic thing. Now, what does al do? Yeah, and it's something specific, isn't it? If I say kitab, it's a book, any book. But if I say al-kitab, it's specific. So with min sharri ghasiqin idha waqab, that's generic. Min sharri hasidin idha hasad, that's generic. And what that means is that whereas with the fourth ayah is what? Min sharri an-nafathati. There's an al there, right? So what is that? That al is specific. Why? Because Allah is saying every single type of sorcery is evil. Every single type of sorcery is evil. There is no good. So Allah puts an al there for emphasis that all types. Like, for example, in Surah Al-Fatiha, Al-Hamd is all manifestations and types of praise. Al. That's what the al does. Every single possible type of praise there. So here this al means that every single type of sorcery, every single type of sorcerer who blows upon knots, shar, evil. Whereas here, min sharri ghasiqin, the evil of a night of darkness. Well, there are some nights that are not evil. Laylatul Qadr. That's a beautiful night, right? So Allah doesn't make it across the board with this one. Hence, there's no al. And likewise, min sharri hasidin. Well, do you think that all jealousy is bad? Well, there are types of jealousy which is good. as we mentioned. Ghibta. Okay?
Which jealousy is good?
So good jealousy, which is known as ghibta, when a person he sees what somebody else has, and he says, "Oh, Allah's given him a good house. May Allah give me a good house as well." So it's not really jealousy; it's more like a du'a, supplication.
What's that called?
Ghibta, ghibta, ghibta. One of the most important things that I think we reflect upon in this is that because jealousy is kind of like the fundamental here, right? Because jealousy is the fundamental here, we have to destroy hatred for other people. We have to destroy that. And that is something that sometimes we struggle with because we sometimes, like, due to kind of our backgrounds or our experience or our, the way people have behaved with us, we just, we end up kind of like hating haters, you know what I mean? We have to destroy that. If we don't destroy that, this hasad will come into our hearts. Because if you see a person you don't like doing well, it hurts, doesn't it? Then you think, oh, that guy, didn't like him. And when it goes wrong for that person, yeah, right, didn't like him. You know what I mean? Like, it's laughable, but it's true as well. Like, we find that kind of, you know what I mean, in our hearts. That's very scary. To finish off with some points of munasaba, some points of flow. So with Surah Al-Nas, like I mentioned, Surah Al-Nas, Surah Al-Falaq are known as the Mu'awwidhatayn, the two protecting surahs. Okay, Surah Al-Falaq deals with the problems that afflict a human being which he has no control over. The issue of the darkness, he doesn't control. The darkness is going to happen. The issue of sorcerers, he can't control. The issue of the envier, he can't control. But An-Nas deals with the issue which he has control of, i.e., the whispering of the shaitan. Okay. The whispering of the shaitan is more powerful than these external evils, hence why a person will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection 3 times in Surah Al-Nas. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas. That's desperation. Oh Allah, master of the people, king of the people, lord of the people. I seek protection in you from the evil of the whispers of the shaitan. Right? Whereas in Falaq, there's not that same type of desperation, which shows what's more dangerous. The shaitan is more dangerous. Okay, those are my reflections for Surah Al-Falaq. Any questions? Any questions?
Is Surah Kafirun not part of the protecting Surah? What they people say.
Not specifically. So the Kafirun has merits but it's specific. It has a different kind of context. This is a specific one about protection from evil. These two are about protection from evil. Yeah, but that has a different context. Are you okay?